this computer. And we are live, and I turn it over to you.
Hello, it is just at 7 o'clock on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, and my name is Sean Dubh. I am going to run through a overguide of how I do wordsmithing to just introduce myself a little bit. I have been in the SCA for a little more than a decade, and won't say how much more than that, but around about that. I have written many scrolls on the local level for the Barony Bacale, and a few most recently for not this reign, but the previous reign. So I have a fair bit of experience. I have a process that I like, and it may be useful to you, and so I'm going to share that. I also do run the unofficial Irish language group. So I definitely have done a scroll for Mellowen in Irish. Mellowen is actually born in Ireland, so I got to really research the crap out of doing that because Google Translate is not sufficient, especially for Gaelic. No. But let me click to my presentation because I thought that was a smart thing to do. I've got to share screen. Where is the share screen? There we go. I know how to do this, kind of. Okay, and you also already saw the bullying and harassment policy, but there it is again. If there's any bullying in my class, I will be very, very sad. So don't do it. Okay, and I can't make it 10% mode. All right, so it's going to go like this. All right, sorry you have to see all the crap around it, but I can't get it full screen on. So we're just going to keep going. All right, so the first thing I do when I get a scroll assignment is I start to research the recipient. Scrolls aren't about the writer, not in the slightest, unless you happen to be the person giving it out, then a little bit. But they're really for the person who you're getting it for. So one, go to their wiki. Hope you know about them, which is why I encourage everyone to write a good wiki because it helps us write good scrolls for you. This is what you want us to know. So, check out their wiki if they have one. If you know their mundane name, you can just, look at their Facebook page. You don't have to be like super stalkery about it, but if they've got a public page, you can see, even just from their garb, you go, oh, okay, I recognize that is, Elizabethan garb. I've got an idea now. So look through all of their social media. The scroll assignment will sometimes have this person is, has this kind of persona and is being given an award for these reasons. And when they have that, that's great. They don't always. I was asked to write a court baron scroll, and the words that were, he's been a really good friend, and we wouldn't be where we are without him. So make a good scroll for him. And had to, dig through and hunt and try and find something. And then I said, oh, wait a second, I can steal from Tolkien. Here are lots about friendship. Not a period source, but period sounding. And had lots of good ideas that I could turn into my own words. So after you research the recipient, research the award. What is this person getting? And what is the level of the award? You wouldn't write the same scroll for a Pelican that you would for an AOA. Obviously, the tone is going to be different. And not that it has to be super serious for serious awards. There can be funny ones at any level, but it's not going to be the same based on the level of the award. And there's also awards that are event dependent. you're writing the scroll for the champions, King and Queen's Rapier champions, or what have you. So then there is no recipient to research yet. That name will be added in later. So now you've got to look at what is the award for, what is the event, does that have a theme to it other than just being champions? Sometimes a champion event will reside within will be part of a larger event that has a theme that you can, use for inspiration. Once you have researched your award, then you also need to know who's giving it, because they matter too. Is this for, your local barony? Does your local baron like to be referred to as any, sobriquets or honorifics that aren't an official title, but, endeared to the populace? Is it, Baron, John the Dread, or what have you? And work with the heralds on the shtick that the giver likes to use. So you can, because what's mostly about the recipient, and they need to be the center, the person giving it, it should reflect them too, because it is, their magnanimity that is giving this award, right? Our barons or our king or consuls are, from their own generosity bestowing these honors. So we want to include them more than just the name, especially for things that they are personally invested in when they're giving. Things like when they're giving a court barony, that is definitely most of the time a personal connection. And so you want to include that. If you know that they are in fact, friends larger than just we play together in the game sometimes. Once you have this information, that's when you get to start creating. There is no one right way to do a scroll. There is no musts, except for you must include the recipient, you must include the giver, you must include, the award, the event that it's being given at, and the date. The location of the event is not necessary, especially when we have some events that take place in one shire but are being hosted by another, like with Shire Wars. So for Shire Wars, I just leave it off because it gets kind of murky, and you don't want murkiness. You want to make sure that the person, whenever they look at that scroll, is going to remember that event. They're going to remember that day. They're going to remember that court. And if you make it murky at all, then that detracts from what is, the good that you are doing. And before you are done, talk to, if you're not the calligrapher, talk to them. Say, here's what I'm proposing, here's my things, and explain, okay, you know what, this person is Shakespearean, so I did it as a sonnet. And then here are the crunchy bits that don't fit into sonnet form with, the must-have included text, because I can't make anything rhyme with your barony. I'm sorry, it just doesn't rhyme. Don't name yourself the Barony of Orange, or whatever the case may be. So explain if it's, a specific poetry piece, poetry form here, and then, a word text underneath. Explain that. That way they know what they're looking at. And sometimes the person doing illumination has a killer idea for what they want, and if they're like, look, I've got this idea for an image, and then, you talk to them and you collaborate so that it's not, here are words by me and calligraphy by Joe and drawing by Susie, and it looks like, two different pieces of art with words that don't even make any sense. So do that. And as you're writing, very important, make sure that it makes sense to you when you read it out loud. Read your stuff out loud or in your head in your favorite herald's voice. I always picture when I finish this, it being read. And that will change some of your word choices. Don't be mean to the herald that has to read this. Unless there is a specific reason to do so, because we can be funny, we can have fun with that. By all means. So I don't have a ton of slides because I hate just people reading slides to you as class. So, as I was saying, you want to be kind to your heralds because they have a hard enough job as it is. Be prepared and know the pronunciation of what you've written if it's anything other than standard English. If you are writing in another language, definitely, I end up reading the Irish translation for Mellow in Bickel's court because I handed it to the herald and they're like, what? No, I can't do this. I'm like, okay, not a problem, because I, did the research on that. So if you are doing a scroll in another language that you speak, at least give them a phonetic pronunciation, or if you are, chatty like me, then, offer to, I can read that part if you're going to be at that event, or if it's going to be a virtual event, because the virtual events have made some things much, much easier than they otherwise would be, without a doubt. And, again, teamwork really, really matters. I can just sit here and, write, a scroll and send it off and never think about it again. And then I feel like I've only done half my job. If the illuminator and the calligrapher aren't clear with what my intention is, if the herald can't read the words, then it's not going to be that fond memory for the recipient. I mean, yeah, they still get the award, and that's very important, but getting called up in court and, being honored in front of people is a big deal. Some people do not want awards for that reason because it's, all the eyes on them. But a lot of us work really hard and want to want that recognition. And this is our part of that bigger recognition. And you want to make sure that you are putting forth the effort that you hope someone puts forth when you get a scroll. I don't want a scroll that was written in crayon that says, roses are red, poems are hard, good job. That's not what I want. I want, I've seen really impressive scrolls. I've heard some really impressive words. I mean, I've seen people cry at the words being read. I want that. I want to do that for people. Way more than I want to do that myself. I want to do that for people. I want to make people feel as special as the award they're getting should make them feel. We work hard for the recognition we get. And so, make it a big deal. It's worth that. It's worth that extra effort. It is worth that collaboration. And, locally with the Bickel Barony, I know the people who do most of the calligraphy. And so I'm able to, as I'm, writing, chat back and forth with them about the recipients. The ones that are done for a kingdom level, if I know the person, I will definitely do it. If I don't know them, I will reach out and ask, hey, you know, mind if I chat with you about this for a minute or two? You know, if I know, if it hasn't been assigned to anyone yet, and you have to check with the signet if it has or not. If it hasn't, then you're kind of left just doing your own thing, and that's okay. You know, we do the best we can. But I always like to make it a team project as much as we can, so that way it's not, you know, incoherent. So it is, you know, a cohesive piece of art that, you know, 2 or 3 artists have all worked together on it, and it comes out as one shining thing. So, yeah, so that's the gist of the overall process. Even have any questions at this point?
Sean, can you talk about like places to go for inspiration in terms of language?
Sure. So places to go for inspiration. The first thing, and actually I did come across for you. The first thing I go to is Google. And you just think of, you know, once you have a time period picked out, then Google up poetry of, you know, that time period. Google Scholar, by the way, is the better way to do that. But your quick and dirty Google search will get you started. And so just research what are the poetry forms, and also the Royal Archives of England and of Spain have extant copies of, you know, period grants of, you know, of land, of baronies. So definitely, you know, search those out. You know, if you're, most people's scrolls are going to be in English. So going to the English language that is at the National Archives of England is definitely a good place to start and to read. That if you know enough Spanish to read the ones, or can find translations of the beautiful works that I've seen from Spain, you know, definitely go there. And the other source of inspiration I always fall back to is scrolls I've heard before. Because I've been to court, I've heard people get awards for things, and I'm not going to parrot anyone's words because that's lazy. But at the same time, we as the SCA have, in each kingdom, you know, has its own vibe to it, has own sort of feeling to it. And there are phrases that are repeated. In some kingdoms, there are phrases that are required. This was actually just posted in the scribes group, asking for what are examples of required text for various scrolls. So, you know, be aware of those. The East is not hung up on a lot of that. The East has a lot fewer sumptuary laws and other such things compared to other kingdoms, or so I've been told. I've only ever lived in the East, but I've been told that it is different in other places. We are relaxed in, which gives the scribe a little more freedom for the language. But again, you want to keep it relevant to the recipient. So, you know, and the award. So if it is, you know, AOA or, you know, AOA level awards tend to be more about the person in general senses, because tend to be people that we don't know as well. They haven't done as much. They tend to be newer. Tend to be, not always. Whereas people who are getting, you know, their third peerage are pretty well known, and there's lots of stories about them that you're going to draw from, and then work in the structure that fits. Sorry. So let me see if I have on a tab. So, oh yes, heraldica.org. Also, heraldica.org, royalty succession, they have the actual, when someone has made a prince, this is the, this is the text that we give them. That's a really good resource to at least get ideas from. Again, you're going to change it to suit what you need, but it's a good base so you're not just reinventing the wheel every time you have to try to scroll.
So I want to throw in a thing just to think about. So while what Sean said is true, the East Kingdom has way more freedom than other kingdoms in terms of writing scroll text. In fact, there are many kingdoms where if you're getting an AOA during a particular reign, this is the scroll text you're using, you vary it, not a word. If you're getting an Arts and Sciences award, at the grant level, this is the scroll text that they're using, you change not a word. So the East Kingdom is the extreme opposite of that, as far from that as you can get. However, it is important to remember if you're giving an AOA level an award, so like a silver brooch is an AOA level award, things like that. You want to avoid using the word grant in that because it's not a grant level award. If you're giving a grant level award, you want to use that word because we are then granting that person arm, because there is still that distinction between having an award of arms or being a part of an order that grants an award of arms, having a grant of arms and being part of any of the orders that grant arms, and then having a patent, which is the peerages. So while, no one's going to run anyone down and be like, shame on you. In general, it's better to avoid using a word like grant on an AOA level award. It's, avoid using the word patent on a grant or an award level.
Yes, definitely. That's why you have to really research the award being given to make sure you understand what level is it. Kingdom level awards you're probably pretty familiar with. If you get an award request from a barony you've never been to, you might have no clue. But the wiki will tell you what the award's for and what baronial level it is as well. So definitely look for those specific, this is a blank level, then you want to include that and exclude it from everything else, because again, you want to make sure that everything is clear, and using an award of arms that we grant you arms instead of award you arms, that could, especially for someone who's relatively new and just getting this award, they think, I was granted arms. You were awarded arms. And the scroll text is unclear, and we're sorry about that, but we just made confusion that didn't need to exist. So that is, definitely important to keep the language clear and the crunchy bits, as I like to call them, and then allow for more fluidity in the rest. I'm also going to suggest, if you are going to do an award and the persona is a culture that you're not totally familiar with, go to Drachenwald, if it's somewhere in Europe, and go to their local group and say, hi, I'm doing a scroll for someone whose persona is this. Can I get some help? And I have never been told no. I've been told, oh, sure. I'll even double check that translation, because the Scadians and Drachenwald are still Scadians. We all like the game we're playing. We all want to have it done well. And, asking for that kind of help can really elevate things up. That way you are sure, if it's another language, then you're getting the language right. Even if it's just cultural context that you don't you're not quite sure on, you can get that from someone. And 9 times out of 10, there's someone, there's going to be someone in the group who can communicate with you, even if like if you go to the group in Sweden, they have people that speak English, even though Sweden is their official language. They'll be able to communicate with you to help you out. So use that as a resource. We do have some startup groups in Asia as well. I forget exactly. I know there's one in China, and I forget where else. But if you are researching, if you're doing one for that area, look on the SCA website for the contact information from the local group and be like, please help. And worst you do is you hear nothing back, and then you're no worse off for asking. But it is definitely, while it's your assignment to do, you don't have to, bear all of that alone, because we all help each other in society, or at least that's one of the things I like best about it, is how eager we all are to help each other. You don't want to ask someone, hey, can you help me with, you have a Japanese persona, can you help me with a Japanese scroll that's for you? You don't want to do that. Certainly. You have to be very discreet when you are gathering information, because you don't want to tip that a scroll is coming for someone. So when you're, if you are cyber sleuthing your way around to find out more about them, be discreet. Check with, if it's, in a baron you've never been to, check with their baron or baroness, because people in those offices will generally be good at keeping it a secret from their people. If you ask their best friend, their BFF might just spill the beans because they're super excited. So that's a good, good way to get that information without tipping the hand. And also each, group, each barony, each shire should have their own wiki page with officer contact information available, or go to that group's own web page and try and track people down that way. If you are hard pressed to get information on someone.
In the same vein of reaching out to people from Europe, people from the Far East to get cultural check-ins, there are also social media groups. So there's SCA Japanese, there's SCA India, there's another one that I'm failing to think of, but those groups are fantastic resources for translators, for primary source texts, things like that. So you can, even if you can't necessarily get someone who happens to be in Japan, who happens to be in Poland, if you're writing a Polish persona's word text, there are groups devoted to so many different niches of SCA persona culture on social media that you can find a lot of resources for help there as well.
Yes, definitely. And using Facebook for something other than yelling at each other is good. We had enough of people yelling at each other about, you breathed the wrong way, I don't like you anymore, because we haven't had events to bring people together. But using those social media channels for what we actually like about this society is definitely the best plan. Because again, everyone has that enthusiasm about the thing that they're doing. Even as people get, worn out from one aspect to another, the thing that brought them there, hopefully they still have that spark, that joy that keeps them as members. We can get burned out on various aspects of things, but if I ever I just can't think about one more Irish thought in my head, I've done something wrong, because that's, that's not just my persona, but that's where my passion for history is. And when you tap into, someone else's passion, that only helps. They'll feel good about helping you. Your scroll will be better. So find the people to help you out, especially when you're like, I got nothing, because you'll run into that. I run into that. It's like, I have this award and the persons have wiki, and I'm not finding any help, and I'm just fried. And then you get stuck, and then you talk to someone who knows them, or you talk to someone who knows about their persona's background, and that enthusiasm that they have for that subject or that person will get you unstuck. Getting stuck is most often, from my personal experience, is due to lack of excitement about that scroll. I've had 10 to do, and this is my 9th one, and I'm worn out, and and now I've talked to this person, and their excitement has woken my spirits back up, and I can keep on going. And an idea, a spark will occur. Whereas if you just try to slog through on your own, and that fire kind of dims, and so find people that'll breathe that fresh oxygen into the flame and get you back up and going. So, any other questions? I do not see any other questions.
I see a hand.
Oh.
Go ahead and unmute yourself. You're still muted.
Is that working?
There you go. We can hear you now.
I wanted to ask a little bit about, like, how do you get work? I mean, I'm lucky I have a group of scribes that I work with, but I'm not in a barony. I'm in a shire. We do not, obviously, we don't have any call for scrolls. Like, how did you get work? How do you find work, etc.?
Okay. So, one, make sure you register with the Signet and tell them, I am a wordsmith, I want work. And when certain awesome people who are on this call were in that office, I got tons of work. And then I don't live in Bacale, but I know the people there. So I get a lot of work from them because I have established that relationship with them. So if you want to do work and you're not getting requests from the Signet, one, be a squeaky wheel. There's never been a case of, well, no, we have a ton of work, but you asked for it, so I'm not going to give it to you. If there's work to be done and you say, I want work, then the people will try to get you on the list to get work. And volunteer to the barony nearest to you, whatever groups you play with. And just because you're not a barony doesn't mean you don't have occasion for scrolls. For instance, if you're doing an event and you're going to have a rapier tournament, you can have a rapier tournament that is just signed by the autocrat. It's not an award scroll, it is a trophy scroll, but that still can be just as pretty and just as awesome. So volunteer wherever you see that there might be a need. And yeah, like I said, if you know people in other areas, reach out to them directly and be like, hey, Baron Wynn, you got something, or ask the Baron for who is in charge of your scrolls, so you can just work with them directly, because a lot of times the Baron and Baroness give them out, but they don't, they have people that handle the assignments for them. So depending on how big the barony is and how busy that's going to be. So just, ask, and don't be afraid to make a nuisance of yourself. There's no much as too much volunteering. Just, hey, I can do that, me anyway. I put these scrolls that I have wordsmith. I recently put them up on my wiki. So if people want examples of your work, it's right there for them to read. Because, especially if you have a specific niche that you want to be known for, like I am trying to be the guy that you come to if you want your scroll written in Gaelic, because that's my thing. That's not my only thing, but that is a thing, that is a niche that is not occupied, as far as I'm aware, by anyone else. So I put those words out there and I have them where people can see them, in part because I'm really proud of them, in part also as kind of advertising, hey, if you want this, then come to me and I will do this for you. Because it was a challenge. My Irish is not that good, but that's half the fun. Doing the easy thing is not nearly so much fun as doing the hard thing. But yeah, reach out. Just start with the signet. Make sure that they know who you are and what it is you do, because you don't want to be given an assignment that is, oh, you volunteered and here, can you illuminate this? No, I volunteered as a wordsmith. Don't make me draw. It's bad. It's really bad. You don't want that, But if you want pretty words, I can make words pretty, and then someone else can make them look pretty on the paper. I'm working on that, but it's still a ways off before I'm ready to pen my own scrolls. I should have been a doctor, with the way my handwriting is. So, clearly communicate with the signet. I'm, looking for wordsmithing work, and, then you fill out the form. There's a form they have you do, and you get on the roster. And then if you don't get anything, keep poking. Find out who your regional signet is, so you don't have to go to the kingdom and like, hey, just a reminder, I'm here. You need anything you need. For a while there was nothing. And then they started up with virtual courts, and there's been a lot of scrolls that have been done for that. And now things are starting to kick back up into full swing again, slowly but surely. I'm expecting there's going to be, continued, need. So say, hey, and if you haven't done it before, then write a sample. Because the signet is going to want to know what is your style, what is that you do. And if you can show them, oh, here's a scroll I made for, my cat, because, I wanted to, get the practice in, then that's something that they can look and go, okay, we see your poetry, we see the flavor that you are adding here. And that helps them divvy out assignments. Okay. Anything, Isabel?
I do have a quick question, and this kind of goes back to your steps, your slides. What do you do? What do you do when the persona of the giver and the recipient clash?
Okay.
You were talking about
So
the persona of the giver versus the persona of the recipient, and obviously, if they clash,
right.
How do you balance?
So that can, right. Clash can be fun. Clash does not necessarily mean a bad thing in this context, because you can turn it into shtick. For instance, if I, as an Irishman, was giving a scroll to someone with an English persona, absolutely, you know, it would be noteworthy about how extraordinary this English person must be to receive a gift from the Irish, because there's a bit of, you know, culture clash there for a couple of centuries or so. So, you know, you can play that up. It's harder if there is no connection than if there's a antagonistic connection. If it's antagonistic, you can work that in. If it's friendly relations, you can work that in. If there's no relations, you know, the, you know, early Roman is giving an award to the late Japanese, then that's just a, you know, an arrow that you can't fire. You know, there is no connection. You can't pull that one out of your quiver and go, here's, you know, where I can tie these two together, and you have to come with other things that tie the recipient and giver together than their personas.
So I'm actually going to also say something here. When there is a mismatch and you can't use it for shtick, in general, it's always better to just lean on the persona of the recipient. Most crowns will say something along the lines of, like, you know, even though they prefer using these titles for themselves, it's more like, you know, they're okay with using more appropriate forms of address if it fits the needs of the scroll for the recipient. So for example, I did a knighting scroll text for a late Japanese persona who was being given the award by crowns who had a Roman persona. It's exactly the scenario Sean described. It would be awkward to try and force those two things together, but instead, you know, I would refer to the crowns as the titles that would be appropriate to put on a Japanese scroll to address the crown in that way. If it's really going to be awkward, choose the recipient over the giver.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, the scrolls are mostly about the recipient, and then a little bit about the giver. Mostly because, again, part of it is the, you know, the conceit of the society, and it's also part of that memory for that recipient. You know, I had never met Fortuna before, but she gave me my AOA, and I will always remember her. So, you know, that moment, you know, is going to stick with the recipient. So the giver is important, but the recipient is definitely, it's here, and then you're somewhere down here as the writer. You matter in that you want to make pretty words, but it's not your award, unless you happen to be the giver. In which case, by all means, have as little pomp about yourself as you like.
Any other questions for Sean? All right, then I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for coming on behalf of the Ministry of Arts and Sciences, and I'm going to stop the recording now.